Hi everyone, how's it going? So, before I get started, I have a special treat for you. Are you ready? Okay, this is Bolo. She's my elusive scaredy cat, and we don't see her very often. And look, she's nervous that Scooter is in the room here, so she's getting all stressed out, and there she goes. Creeping and staring at Scoot the whole way, and there she goes. All because of that scary little three-legger right there. All because of that scary little three-legger. Yep, I know. He's intimidating. All right, now let's get down to business. How is everyone? I'm missing something. There it is. Ooh, sorry. I was just so excited to show you Bolo because she's never around, and I know I've shown you a couple of pictures, but that was her in real life. What do you think? I know, pretty great, huh? I have a bunch of animals. Scooter, what are you doing? Hey. I don't know. He's being weird. Imagine that. So I hope everyone's weekend was fantastic. I was so excited to get to talk to some of you last Friday. That was a lot of fun. I get to talk to a few more of you this week, and I love it. It was so nice and totally made my day. So I miss you guys. I don't know if you know that. I don't mention it very often, you know, so yeah, I do miss you. And I hope you're doing good. Okay, are you ready to continue with Fablehaven? You guys, oh my gosh, we are so close to being done, and then I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. Probably sing and dance to you on videos instead. Kidding. All right, chapter 22, Light. Do you remember what happened the last time? So if it's been a while since you've watched a video, Kendra went and saw the Fairy Queen, right? And the Fairy Queen had to destroy her shrine on the island in order to make a talisman, okay? And so the talisman is the little white round stone that now contains all of the light. And what do they have to do with that stone? Do you remember, to try and stop the plague? They have to touch that stone to the revenant's nail that is now in the tree of Ephira, who used to be a Hamadryad, and now she's like evil and working with Kurosok the demon and this big old mess. But do you remember what happens to the person who touches the two things together? They die. Oh my goodness, you guys. I don't know. Okay, chapter 22, Light. Seth waited beside Lena in the gazebo above the pier. None of the satyrs, dryads, or dwarfs lingered on the boardwalk or in any of the other pavilions. As Patton had asked, they remained out of sight. Kendra and Patton reclined in the rowboat, returning placidly toward the boathouse, apparently towed by the same naiads who had recently been attacking them. Seth wished he could have seen what Kendra was doing out on the island, but she spent most of the time screened by bushes. Lena had described a blinding light, but Seth had failed to see it. "You were awesome at dodging those naiads," Seth said. "Anything to distract them from drowning my husband," Lena replied. "Part of me will always love my sisters, but they can be such pests. I was glad for an excuse to bait them." "Do you think Kendra succeeded?" Seth asked. "She must have made contact. Only the queen could have ordered the naiads to conduct them safely back to shore." Lena narrowed her eyes. "Something has changed about the island. I can't quite put my finger on it. After the flash, there is a new feeling permeating this whole area." Lips pursed, Lena thoughtfully watched the rowboat glide into the boathouse. Seth bounded down the steps to the pier, arriving at the boathouse door as Kendra and Patton exited. "Anything good happen?" Seth asked. "Pretty good," Kendra said. "What's with the egg?" Seth inquired. "It's a pebble," Kendra corrected, closing her fingers around it tightly. "I'll fill you guys in, but we should do it back at the tent." Patton embraced Lena. "You were wonderful," he said, pecking her on the lips. "However, I don't enjoy seeing you so near those naiads. I can think of a few people they would rather drag to the bottom of the pond." "I can think of few people they would have a harder time catching," Lena responded smugly. They mounted the stairs to the gazebo and then descended a few steps into the grassy field. 3 towering dryads strode briskly toward them, obstructing their route to the tent. In the middle, the tallest of the 3, walked the dryad Seth had seen consulting with Grandpa and Grandma, her auburn hair flowing past her waist. The dryad to her left looked Native American and wore earthy robes. The dryad on the right was a platinum blonde with a gown like a frozen waterfall. All of the graceful women stood at least a head taller than Patton. "Hello, Lizette," Patton said amiably to the dryad in the middle. "Don't hello me, Patton Burgess," she said, scowling down at him, her voice melodious but hard. "What have you done to the shrine?" "The shrine?" Patton asked, checking quizzically over his shoulder. "Is something amiss?" "It has been destroyed," the blonde dryad announced firmly. "After you sent us away," the Native American added. Lizette gazed at Kendra, her eyes narrow. "And your friend is outshining the sun." "I hope you aren't insinuating that we overthrew the monument," Patton objected scornfully. "Not only do we lack the desire, we lack the means. The Fairy Queen dismantled the shrine for reasons of her own." "You realize the preserve has permanently lost contact with Her Highness," Lizette said. "We find this unacceptable." She and the other 2 leaned forward menacingly. "Less acceptable than Fablehaven and all who dwell here descending into irredeemable darkness?" Patton asked. The dryads relaxed slightly. "Do you have a plan?" Lizette asked. "Has Kendra ever gleamed any brighter?" Patton exclaimed. "Her glow is a token of good things to come. Lend us a few minutes to confer in private, and we will announce our plot to reclaim Fablehaven, a strategy formulated by the Fairy Queen herself." Patton glanced at Kendra as if hoping her words were true. Kendra gave a slight nod. "There had best be a satisfactory explanation for this desecration," Lizette threatened darkly. "This day will be mourned until the end of leaf and stream." Reaching up, Patton patted Lizette on the shoulder. "Losing the shrine is a grievous blow to all who love light. We will avenge this tragedy." Lizette stepped aside and Patton led the others between the somber dryads. Although temporarily appeased, the towering women clearly remained unsatisfied. When Kendra, Seth, and Lena reached the tent, Patton followed the others inside, dropping the flap to cover the opening. "What happened?" Seth asked. "The Fairy Queen destroyed the shrine in order to make this." Kendra held up the pebble. Patton squinted. "No wonder you've been gleaming so much brighter." "I don't see any light," Seth complained. "Only some eyes can see it," Lena said, eyes narrowed. "Why can't I?" Kendra asked. "The pebble only looked bright when the Fairy Queen was making it." "The light of the stone must have united with your inner light," Patton said. "Your own light can be difficult to distinguish. I imagine you can see in the dark?" "I can," Kendra said. "Whether or not you recognize it, Kendra, you carry much light within you," Patton said. "With the stone, your radiance has grown even more brilliant. To those who can perceive such light, you glare like a beacon." Kendra curled her fingers around the stone. "The Fairy Queen filled the stone with all of the power protecting the shrine. When I remove the stone from this area, dark creatures will be able to enter. If we touch the pebble to the nail in the tree, the objects will destroy each other." "All right," Seth exclaimed. "There's a catch," Kendra said. "The Fairy Queen said that whoever connects the objects will die." "Not a problem," Patton dismissed the concern with a wave of one hand. "I will personally resolve this dilemma." "No, you won't," Lena said anxiously. "You have to return to me. Your life can't end here." "What we shared already happened," Patton said. "Nothing I do here can change that." "Don't you try to con me, Patton Burgess," Lena growled. "I've put up with your pacifications for decades. I know you better than you know yourself. You're always stretching for an excuse to protect others at your expense, partly out of a noble sense of duty, mostly for the thrill. You're well aware that if you fail to return to the past, you may wipe out the majority of our relationship. My whole history could change. I refuse to lose our life together." Patton looked guilty. "There are many uncertainties with time travel. To my knowledge, the chronometer is the only successful time travel device ever created. Most practicalities remain untested. Keep in mind, in your past, I returned after I traveled through time. Some would argue that nothing I do now can possibly contradict that reality. If I die during my visit here, somewhere else along some alternate timeline, there might be a Lena I won't see again, but your history is secure. Regardless of what happens to me, you will very likely persist here as if nothing in your past has changed." "Sounds like a flimsy theory," Lena refuted. "If you're wrong, and you fail to return, you could completely alter history. You have to go back. You have important duties to perform, not only for my sake, for the good of countless others. Patton, I've lived a full life. If any of us must expire, it should be me. I could move on with no complaints. Seeing you again is the perfect culmination of my mortality. She gazed at Patton with such undisguised adoration that Seth averted his eyes. Why does anybody have to die? Seth asked. Why not throw the stone at the nail? Then nobody would actually connect the objects. We could try, Patton said. It introduces an additional element of risk. Merely getting close enough to the tree will be a challenge. I could do it, Seth said. Lena rolled her eyes. As candidates for uniting the talismans, you and Kendra are out of the question. Am I? Seth asked. What if we get there and everyone but me ends up paralyzed by fear? Ephira may not be able to radiate magical fear as readily as she could inside her lair, Patton said. She may not even be able to reach Kurosak's domain. Besides, as a dragon tamer, I'm fairly resistant to magical fear. You froze back at the house, Seth reminded him. Tilting his head, Patton gave a half nod. If needed, you can hold my hand and get me close, then I'll take the stone the rest of the way. I'm supposed to hold the pebble as long as I can to keep it stable and fully charged, Kendra said. Maybe I should do it. No kids, Patton emphasized. My newest goal is to go my entire life without any children sacrificing themselves on my behalf. As part of being fairy kind, I can command fairies, Kendra said. Is there something they could do? Since when can you command fairies? Seth blurted. I just found out, Kendra said. Then have a fairy connect the pebble and the nail, Seth said enthusiastically. The fairies have always hated me. Maybe you could have all of them destroy the nail together. Seth, Kendra exclaimed chidingly, that isn't funny. Forcing a fairy to undertake a suicide mission could have serious repercussions, Patton cautioned. I don't like it. I love it, Seth reaffirmed, grinning. Maybe I could ask for volunteers, Kendra suggested, so it won't be me compelling anyone. This line of thinking is futile, Lena said. No creatures of light will be able to enter Kurosak's domain. Kendra held up the egg-shaped pebble. The fairy queen said that as long as I hold the stone, an umbrella of light will help protect those near me. Now, that is useful information, Patton mused. If the power that keeps this area of sanctuary of light were to enter a stronghold of darkness, the influx of positive energy might allow light creatures to enter. Let's recruit some fairies, Seth said, clapping his hands together eagerly. Better them than us. We can try the fairies as a backup, Patton replied, but be forewarned, fairies are notoriously unreliable, and we should leave intentionally compelling a fairy to die on our behalf out of the question. I am more excited that we might be able to cajole some more responsible allies into joining us and helping us win through to the tree. If all else fails, I'll finish the task, Lena vowed. I'm young, I'm agile, I'm strong. I can do it. Patton crossed his arms. Permit me to revise my latest goal. I also want to go my whole life without my wife dying on my behalf. If a fairy fails to voluntarily destroy the talismans, I'll throw the stone. I have excellent aim. Then, nobody will be touching the objects when they connect. And if you miss? Lena asked. We'll worry about that if it happens. Which is Pattonese for, you will unite the objects yourself, Lena huffed. Patton shrugged innocently. Have you ever considered that you might be worth more to the world alive than dead? Lena groused. If I were going to die doing something dangerous, it would have happened a long time ago, he responded. Lena swatted at him. I hope I'm not there the day all your cocky words return to humble you. You'll be there, Patton said, scoffing and pointing. Not if you're in a coffin, Lena grumbled. When should we do this? Seth asked. Daylight is failing, Patton said. We want the sun with us when we embark on this murky venture. I recommend we sally forth in the morning with as many companions as will join us. And I get to come, right? Seth confirmed. We can't leave you behind unprotected from dark influences, Patton said. This final gamble is all or nothing. Whether we triumph or fail, we will do it together, pooling our talents and resources. Speaking of talents, Lena said, Seth had better get to the gap in the hedge so he can see if any shadow people come to us with information. Only then did Seth notice how much the glow of the yellow and purple tent walls had reddened with the setting sun. I'll go right now, he said. I'll join you, Kendra offered. Lena and I will go rally support among the other citizens of Fablehaven, Patton said. Our story will be that the Fairy Queen has given us the power to attack Kirasak and reverse the plague. We do not want to be any more specific in case the information reaches unfriendly ears. Got it, Seth said, stepping out of the tent. The others followed. While Patton was mobbed by satyrs, dryads, dwarfs, and fairies, Kendra and Seth slipped through the crowd and headed for the main entrance. A few fairies flitted along behind Kendra, as if hoping to approach her, but when Patton began explaining the situation, they zipped away in his direction. When Kendra and Seth reached the opening in the hedge, the dark satyrs stationed there backed away a good distance, a couple of them bleating angrily. Not bleeding, bleating. You know, because they're goats. Okay. They squinted at Kendra, fuzzy hands raised to shield their feral eyes. Looks like you're blinding the freaky satyrs, Seth said. Do you think your rock will keep Grandma and Grandpa away? Maybe my shininess will help them find us, Kendra said. Seth plopped down in the grass. The sun hung just above the treetops west of the field. They'll be able to come soon. Who do you think will show up? Kendra asked. Hopefully all 6 of them. Kendra nodded. Too bad I won't be able to see them. Well, I guess one person can't have every single magical ability the universe has to offer. You aren't missing much. You can't really recognize them except by their outlines. Seth started plucking at the tiny blue flowers in the grass. Kendra sat with her knees scrunched up to her chest, hugging her folded legs. Shadows crept across the field until the sun went down and twilight engulfed the clearing. Kendra appeared content with silence, and Seth could not muster the effort to spark a conversation. He stared through the gap in the hedge, hoping to see a familiar shadow join the dark satyrs lurking beyond the opening. As the vivid sunset dimmed, the temperature faded from hot to warm. Finally, a single black form emerged from among the restless satyrs. The silhouette plodded toward the gap in the hedge as if resisting a mighty wind. Seth sat up. Here we go. Who do you see? Kendra asked. He's short and thin. Might be Coulter. Seth raised his voice. That you, Coulter? With apparent effort, the figure raised a hand to display the missing fingers. He kept trudging forward, each step seeming to demand greater effort than the last. He's struggling, Seth said. Must be your light. Should I back away? Kendra asked. Maybe, Seth said. Kendra rose and walked away from the gap in the hedge. Wait, Seth cried. He's waving his arms. He's motioning for you to come back. No, not just back. He wants you to come toward him. What if it isn't Coulter? Kendra worried. He can't pass through the gap, Seth said. Just don't get within grabbing distance. Sorry, my nose itches, you guys. Oh, allergies. Seth and Kendra walked toward the gap, stopping 2 paces from the entrance. Coulter hunched forward, trembling with the effort of each arduous step, but managed to keep his feet moving. Where is he? Kendra asked. Almost to the gap, Seth said. He looks like he's about to pass out. Coulter slogged forward another few steps. Pausing, he leaned forward, bracing one hand against his thigh. Quivering, he strained to lift the other arm, but failed to hoist it very high. He's reaching for us, Seth said. Step a little closer. I can't let him touch me, Kendra exclaimed. Just a step, Seth said. I think he's come as far as he can. Why don't I back away? Kendra asked. He wants you near him, Seth said. Kendra took a cautious half-step forward, and suddenly Seth glimpsed flesh flickering beneath the shadow. I see him! Kendra shrieked, lifting her hands to her lips. Part of him, anyway, faintly. Me too, Seth said. I've never seen any of the shadow people do that. I think you might be healing him. Yes, he's nodding. Get closer. What if he contaminates me? Kendra asked. Just a little closer, said Seth. He still won't be able to reach you. What if he's faking how far he can reach? Kendra asked. He fell to his knees, Seth cried. I can see, Kendra said, taking another half step toward the gap in the hedge. Coulter flashed into clearer view, slumped forward, both hands against his thighs. His face looked anguished, contorted by tremendous effort. He tried to keep his head up, but it was slowly bowing. Help him, Seth yelped. Kendra stepped into the gap between the hedges and seized Coulter's shoulder. Instantly, he came into full view and flopped through the gap in the hedge to lie panting on the path. Coulter! Seth exclaimed. You're back! Barely, he wheezed, face ruddy from the recent exertion. Just barely. Give me a minute. We're so happy you're alive, Kendra gushed, tears blurring her vision. We should stay back from the entrance, he gasped, crawling away from the gap in the hedge. A pair of satyrs just took off running, Seth reported. They'll want to spread the word that Kendra can overcome the darkness, Coulter panted. He sat up, taking deep breaths. Gradually, he appeared to relax. Did you see my light? Kendra asked. Coulter chuckled. Did I see it? I was scalded by your light, Kendra, blinded by it. I thought it might consume me. It scorched me differently than sunlight. Sunlight only inflicted pain, cold pain. Your light beckoned as well as burned. It gave me warmth along with the pain, the first warmth I felt since the shadow fairies transformed me. I could feel the darkness that possessed me cringing away from your light, and that gave me hope. I thought if I could just get close enough to your light, I would either perish or be cleansed. Either way, my frigid existence would end. What was it like as a shadow? Seth asked. Coulter shivered, colder than I could ever describe. A normal human body would go numb long before it could experience the cold I felt. Sunlight intensified the cold into agony. As a shadow, it was tough to focus. My emotions became confused. I felt desolate, utterly empty. My mind wanted to shut down. I was constantly tempted to collapse and wallow in my emptiness, but I knew I had to fight those inclinations. Tanu helped me keep my mind whole after he was changed. Where is Tanu? Kendra asked. And what about the others? Have you seen Grandma and Grandpa? Coulter shook his head. Gone. All of them. I met up with Warren and Dale briefly. As fellow shades, we could communicate, more like telepathy than speaking. They warned me she was after them, that she had already taken Stan and Ruth away. We split up with plans to reunite at a rendezvous. None of the others ever arrived. I came here, hoping to warn you what had happened to the others. You were shining, I approached, and here we are. What did Afira do to them? Kendra asked. Is that her name? Coulter asked. Warren and Dale suspected she was imprisoning them somewhere, stashing them away. Hard to say for sure. Tell me, Kendra, why you were shining so brightly? I'm not shining anymore? She asked. Coulter scrutinized her. I expect you are, but not to my eyes. She eyed the dark satyrs, who had retreated even farther from the gap in the hedge. We'll give you all the details later, in a place where we won't be overheard. The Fairy Queen gave me a gift full of light energy. She lowered her voice to a whisper. It might help us stop the plague. It certainly cured me, Coulter said. Hurt plenty, though. I expect it will rank right up there with my least favorite memories. He stretched his arms. I guess it's up to the three of us to rescue the others. We also have Patton Burgess helping us, Seth said. Coulter snickered. Right, and I expect Paul Bunyan will also be lending a hand. We should check if Pecos Bill is available. He's serious, Kendra confirmed. Patton came forward through time. He's here. When Lena saw him, she abandoned the pond again, so we have her too. Coulter failed to resist a broad grin. You're pulling my leg. Would we kid around during such a dangerous time? Seth asked. I was raised on stories about Patton Burgess, Coulter said, eagerness entering his voice. I've always dreamed of meeting him. He died not long before I was born. I don't think you'll be disappointed, Seth assured him. Can you walk? Kendra asked. We could bring him here. Grunting, Coulter tottered to his feet. Seth steadied him as he swayed. Now don't start coddling me, Coulter griped. I just need half a second to get my bearings. Coulter started walking toward the tent, his measured steps a bit wobbly. Seth stayed near him, ready to catch the older man if he stumbled. Coulter's paces grew more confident, and his posture became more natural. Here they come, Kendra said, pointing across the field. Holding hands, Patton and Lena were swiftly approaching. What do you know, Coulter murmured. Who could have guessed I would meet Patton Burgess in the flesh? You found a friend, Patton called to Kendra and Seth. Coulter! Lena cried. It has been far too long. She danced forward and took his hands, sizing him up. You look young, Coulter marveled. Patton Burgess, Patton said, extending a hand. In a daze, Coulter gripped the hand and shook it. Coulter Dixon, Coulter managed, his mannerisms unabashedly starstruck. I take it you were a shadow? Patton asked. I staggered as close as I could to the space between the hedges drawn by Kendra's light. When she reached out and touched me, her radiance purged the darkness from me. Patton assessed Kendra. I suppose a risk that paid off was a risk worth taking. Then again, had you become infected yourself, we could have been finished before we began. How did it go with the others? Seth asked. We can expect considerable assistance tomorrow, Patton forecasted. You willing to join us, Coulter? Absolutely, he said, nervously running a hand over his mostly bald head, smoothing down the wispy tuft of hair in the middle. I'm relieved you're here. Glad if I can help, Patton said, but our hope resides in Kendra. We should adjourn to the tent so we can fill you in on the details. Tomorrow, we will decide the fate of Fablehaven. All right, you guys. That was an entire chapter, so don't grumble at me. Whole chapter. Next chapter, so this one was titled Light. Now the next one is Darkness. Oh my goodness, you guys. I hope you're enjoying the story, and I will see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.